Professor Brain Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. Great. I love this conversation so far. And as much as you've said just one low, I'm curious to know the highs that you've experienced. Yes, I feel like you've said them, but not as indicated them as they were the highs, but maybe, I don't know, anything that is science related, science communication related, your career in general, or related to your career or your personal life, or anything that you'd like to share that is a high that brought positive emotions to your life.
Well, I think one of the highs I've experienced, most of them actually have been in this last 1 year, that after participating in the Jinko Fellowship, it's like all of a sudden I became an expert on these matters. I became a sought after expert. So I started getting invitations to panel discussions, to conferences, to deliver presentations to international gatherings on matters to do with the bioeconomy and science communication. And so I've kind of, moved along that till now. Yeah. So one of the very first thing that happened was to host the very first International Synthetic Biology Conference in Africa. It was a 3-day conference here, and I was a co-host along with a friend of mine, Ivy. Thereafter, I participated in a discussion on now shipping policies. And here we're trying to understand how we can make shipping policies more favorable, especially for researchers who want to access import research inputs, for example, reagents, equipment. So we wanted to develop.
Sounds like a church, man. I love that. I love that. That's a very big problem.
Yeah. So iGEM, have you heard of iGEM?
I've seen it somewhere, but I've never really thought about it. Tell us.
iGEM is, in full, it's the International Genetic Engineering Machine. So it's an international student competition, biotech student competition. So high school, undergraduate, and postgraduate students meet at a very huge gathering every year, and they present genetic engineering innovative ideas to a panel of judges. Then the winning teams, I think, they get funding. And it's like we have investors looking at this biggest biotech competition in the world. So they're always looking up for which ideas are investment worthy.
Investing. Wow.
So actually, Jinko Bioworks, the one I mentioned earlier, was started by an iGEM team. These kids at the undergraduates came up with these things, and some of them became the co-founders of that company that's now responsible for more than 40% of synthetic biology globally.
Wow.
So this competition is really very amazing. So they organized the shipping policies idea. The idea they wanted to develop a map, a resource, whereby a scientist anywhere on the globe, in case they want to know what kind of policies they'll interact with as they're going about their research, they just go to this website, look at the customs involved, who do I apply to, where do I get the license, and also identifying the barriers, what can we do about them, who can we talk to. So, and that was because of the fellowship. So as I told you, one of the highs was really becoming an expert on policy in this space. Yeah.
I feel like clapping. Who are these people who did that?
iGEM.
No. Who presented that to iGEM?
Well, iGEM has already a committee on biosafety, and so they reached out to me to join that panel on shipping policies.
Okay.
I joined the team as I would say, the African expert on this matter. So
I don't know why you're smiling. You should be proud of that, though.
I'm very proud, but
You feel weird.
exactly, you know.
I know.
I feel like it's too early to be expert. I feel like I
No,
should wait
it's
for a
not.
PhD, but
No, it's not. It's not.
I'm
It's
thankful.
not.
I'm really thankful
Yeah.
that I get to be able to share my thoughts on these platforms.
So it was a team that, I'm trying to understand this. It was a team
Yeah.
that presented their work on shipping.
So the organizing that they're trying to mobilize that resource. So they had a bit of panel discussion with experts on policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, the IGEM team.
Yeah. So the
Okay.
IGEM, it's a competition of students. Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand.
They have a constant, should I say, like a management team formed up of all these committees. They have committees handling human practices, biosafety, handling innovation, handling, you know.
Okay.
But they are like part of the organizers, I would say the organizing team of the competition. Yeah.
All right.
So IGM has grown beyond the competition to now supporting the whole synthetic biology community altogether. Reason being, this IGM has eventually ceased being students and they become company owners. So they wanted a kind of way to keep supporting this growing community of synthetic biologists. So they keep coming up with programs to support these people in science communication, in investment, in policy, that kind of thing. So at the moment, I'm working with their steering group on science communication. So we are having projects aimed at supporting these scientists on how they can communicate their science better.
Okay.
So at the time, I was a policy consultant, policy expert on shipping policies. So my role was really to look at the case of Uganda and the case of Africa and how we are handling shipping for biotech products for the benefit of the rest of the world working in science.
Was there a question of how we can support Africa by having an African-based biotech manufacturing company?
Well, that is there. And actually, of late, there's a lot of discussion on how we can have, like, should I call it dedicated effort to supporting the biotech sector in Africa? Actually, even Ginkgo Bioworks is working with Africa CDC to develop the lab capacity to do some of the things here. So IGEM, Ginkgo Bioworks, and Synbio Africa, the community, they're really working around the clock to ensure that in the next few years, Africa is able to do most of the biotech on the continent. And that's really our goal.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's the other high?
Well, the other high is the two fellowships I've gotten a chance to be part of. These are very competitive. I'm interacting with people who are the best in their fields, and you know, you get into a space and you almost feel like an imposter, but then you're like, okay, you're qualified to be here, but it's really a mixed feeling, you know. And you look at the lineup of, for example, for Ginkgo Bioworks, 2021 was the very first time they had the fellowship. So I got into the inaugural class. So now 2022 they advertised again. So now people who applied the previous year, in other words, the people who I was competing against, now come up to consult, and I'm like, wow. You look at people's profiles and feel like these guys were more qualified than you. How do I? You know, it's a very humbling experience. You know, to get to interact with these people who have done the things, and you're like, wow. So the same thing with the Breakthrough Institute. I look at first of all, the alumni, look at the other people I'm going to be studying with, and the people I'm competing against, and you're like, wow. So it's really, those have been my highs, getting to participate in these programs.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I always have a question. I don't know why I said I have a question. How did it feel the first time that you got feedback that you had gotten the fellowship, the first fellowship?
Well, I
Do
screamed.
you remember?
I
You
remember
screamed?
that time. I screamed.
Wow.
It was an evening, and normally chilling on the phone, and an email message pops up, and you know how good news starts. We are pleased to inform you. And, yeah, they're like, wow.
Did you finish the email?
It was very interesting. It was very interesting. I first jumped around, read the email. I was like, "Wow, this is unbelievable." And what made it a more enriching experience, I got to interact with people who have done a lot of work in this space. The gentleman who was in charge of that department, policy and partnerships at GENCO. This was a gentleman with very rich experience in handling biotech policy. He was the guy behind this whole idea of the COVAX facility that was donating vaccines to Africa. He literally started
What's the name?
Ryan Mohad.
Okay.
Yeah, he's director of policy and partnerships there. Lily, all these guys are really amazing. And I think the other thing that was interesting was how the kind of, in a meeting and I address you like the African expert. So it challenged me to always be on the top of matters.
Your game. Like,
oh, yes, because I was like,
up to date.
Anytime a discussion comes up and they're discussing Africa, you have to know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So it was really good. And I think that kind of defined my policy thinking going forward. That now when I'm thinking of policy, I always want to know what's happening elsewhere. I'm now no longer thinking of Uganda. I'm thinking of now Africa. Actually, almost nowadays, all my policy plans, my policy recommendations are now addressing Africa as a continent. Uganda still, and I find the space at Synbio Africa really very good for that, because Synbio Africa is aimed at growing the biotech and static biology space across the entire continent. When you're organizing workshops, conferences, you have to always ensure we are addressing the continent. You're supporting capacity on the continent. So that was really a very good experience to realize that these things don't affect just a country, but the science we are really so passionate about has spillovers to the rest of the world. So we always have to think about that. That if this goes wrong, what will happen elsewhere? Previously, biosecurity and biosafety was like a fiction. You watch all these movies of things escaping out of the lab and you feel like, no, that can never happen.
It sounds like horror, or it sounds like sci-fi movie with
exactly.
We're just watching something interesting. It's not spicy, but
and Ryan was sharing his experience of how he was trying to get governments to commit to having a response plan to such events. And people feel like it's a good idea, but they feel like it's far-fetched, feel like there can't be something that can really bring the entire world to its knees. It can't happen.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. And so when it eventually happens, I was like, I always told you guys, you need to prepare for this. And luckily, at least he had thought about it, so he got to lead the COVAX facility and other related efforts. And it was a bit of a good
That's a good discussion, really. That's a really good discussion. Because, yes, we're not hoping that someone will not be...
Yeah.
We're not hoping that someone will make a mistake, but we need to be ready for that. When I was talking to my supervisor recently, she was suggesting to me, she was like, she's actually very... So, yes, I'm a master's student at ILRI doing my project where I'm looking for new vaccines for bacterial pneumonia that affects cattle called CBPP. And for me to do that, I need to understand how the host interacts with the host. The host interacts with the host. The host interacts with the
pathogen.
The pathogen, of which the pathogen here is the bacteria, which is a mycoplasma, which is actually it's the smallest. It belongs to the smallest class of living organisms that can be supported. Like the smallest bacteria. Yes, bacteria are small, but it's the smallest bacteria.
Yeah.
It has the smallest genomes. It's very difficult to work with. But the mycoplasma is interacting with the cow in the lungs. It's a pneumonal disease.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out what happens there. So since the immune response looks like it's a viral immune response instead of being a bacterial immune response, we're trying to understand what is happening there. So for me to do that, I'm creating mutants. So this is GMO, right?
Yeah.
But there are no policies in Kenya to deal with
guide.
that. Yes, to deal with that. So we're using even when the biosafety people are coming, they're using the rules for animal GMO. And they're still not figuring out this is actually not animal GMO. It is bacteria that I'm creating that have just mutated and it's not going anywhere. I'm not even testing it on animals. I'm just using it to study the fundamentals of like trying to understand which gene is responsible for this.
Yeah.
How can we use this information to get a better vaccine? You know, it's very fundamental research. So when you're having these discussions, she was like, okay, and plus I recently won the pitch to present your work in 3 minutes at ILRI, the Captive Challenge, just recently. And she knows that I really love science communication. She knows that I do podcasts. So she was like, you're lucky. No, she didn't say that the way I'm saying it, but that was the way that was
you picked it.
Yeah, that's why I picked it. That you're lucky that you can go into science. You're good in science. You understand your science. You're passionate about it. She knows I'm very passionate about it, but it frustrates me at times. And you can go into science, you can go into science communication, you can go into biosecurity, all these things. And if I was to do a mistake, and if I was to create a mutant that actually is not becomes infective, of which we are not hoping for that, it's not possible. Really possible somehow, but if that's possible, it's good. Like, you have to be careful with how you handle the things that you're creating, you know, because you don't want to let that out of the lab. Even if it won't infect you, it might infect the cows, you know. Other somewhere, whatever else. So, and I was having this discussion with someone who is from the he's a biosafety officer in Kenya. And we were actually having a podcast on this, and we're discussing that. And he was thinking we should have, you know, a platform where we talk about this biosafety issues, and, you know, just educate and let's have conversations around it. Because these are things I don't see really happening. People don't want to see that, you know, that's possible. They don't have that conversation, but it's a very good conversation to have.
True. And I think because of this experience, I think now the policymakers are more willing to have that conversation. That's the only, I would say, the silver lining to this cloud of the pandemic. Having now that listening ear as we discuss biosafety and biosecurity.
Yes.
I've actually just seen an email. I'm told now there's, which university is it? I think it's in Kenya, which now has an undergraduate course on biosafety and biosecurity.
Which one?
Is this university in Kenya? Yeah, it is in Kenya. Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology.
Most.
Yes, Kakamega, Kenya. Yes.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
And I was so happy as like, wow, now people are thinking progressively.
It's an undergraduate.
Undergraduate. That was long overdue.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that this is finally here.
I've never even heard of such a course in Kenya.
It's new. It's new. Yeah. I think they've just launched.
And you're the first one to know. And we are the first one to know here.
Yeah. Yes. They have launched and they're working with the Foundation for the Biosafety Association, International Federation of Biosafety something. And I think it will be a very good thing that we have this capacity being built locally. Yeah. At least once you have the undergraduate, then the postgraduates will also follow suit, and
And that's a very funny way of starting a course, because normally you'll see if they want to start something new, they will start with the postgraduate. It's like the way bioinformatics is. You start with the postgraduate, then going backwards. Yeah. That's a very nice way to approach things. Now at least we'll have people who've had 4 years of learning about all that.
Yes, of biosafety, biosecurity.
Yes.
That's very good. Very, very nice. And I think you're going to have them for a workshop coming up next month under that initiative to combat those global catastrophic biological risks. And I think it will be exciting to learn that Kenya is thinking ahead in that space. Yeah.
We were talking about you being an African expert matters. And how that feels. Like,
it's a very humbling experience, but I think it gives me a really huge challenge in that I really have to make sure I'm always on top of matters.
Yeah.
So that anytime I'm participating in discussions, I don't sound dumb. I have to know what's happening, what can be done. So I've now gotten myself in a space whereby it's now normal for me to just have these discussions with my colleagues, just to know what can be done, what they're thinking. Sometimes I just meet up people online and ask them to have just casual chats, just to know, understand how people are thinking through these whole ideas, bioeconomy and biosecurity. So that whenever I have the opportunity, I can always make worthy arguments.
Wow, I've never even heard of bioeconomy. I'm so backward, man. Anyway, now I'm learning.
But you now know what the bioeconomy is, right?
Yeah, you told me the money aspect of science, right?
Of biotech specifically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, the simpler definition is this is the part of the economy that's contributed by biotechnology.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very simple explanation.
Yeah.
Okay. So
for example, as you work on your vaccine, my job would be to ensure that at the end of the day, this is not just for the publication, but it's something that can be sold maybe by that institute, or you set up a company around that whole concept, you patent the vaccine and have a vaccine value chain, whereby Kenya is having people buying vaccine for that particular animal disease from you guys.
Yeah.
So thinking through how to upscale production,
products
what would be required,
that come from science, and how to make them.
Yes, how to make them economically feasible, especially for investors. Yeah.
Guy, that's so guy. I'm saying guy. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So I think I saw the post on LinkedIn, so I'm really looking forward to see what comes out of the work you're working on. I think it will be exciting.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I like when people tell me about what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, so I'm actually doing communication. There is nothing that excites me recently, like when someone who's not, especially in my field or who is in science generally, who understands what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
But I'm a scientist, Sarah. So.
I know. But sometimes even if you're a scientist, you really don't know
what's happening.
What someone else is doing, someone next to you what he's doing. You're not even really bothered to know what you do your science, I do my science.
And whenever such things happen, I feel like my choice of career path is justified. To understand the science first and then seek to communicate it.
Yeah.
So that's when I'm discussing with the scientist like you, I can easily pick on what you're trying to explain. Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted by a science communication post. By the way, I am really passionate about communicating science to the public. Full stop. Like, not science communication in general. The informal bit of it, I'm very particular about that, and I'm very passionate about it. So when I see something related to that, it really distracts me. I'm like,
that's a good form of distraction.
Yeah. Like I'm like, what? And it's a previous guest here who's talking about it. She's interviewed someone who talks about the experience of communicating science, the challenges of communicating science to the public.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Oh, okay. Now I've gotten lost in my head. It's not confessing. My mind just goes when it comes to something distracts me.
We're winding up the highs, and
yeah.
you're asking about how it feels now to to be able to speak for Africa on some of these matters.
Yes. So the other question that I was about to ask again is how now you had the first experience. Now the second experience of you getting this fellowship that you are about to start. How was it like getting that yes?
Now, this yes felt like I almost feel like it's a sign from God that I'm walking down, should I call it the right path? Having opportunities coming in where I want them to come from also. Yeah. Because, when I read that, still now this fellowship still has notified of it by the gentleman I talked about earlier, Nasib, who introduced me to Ubik. He's an alumnus of this fellowship. So I think when they put out the call, I remember they had the mobilizer in Uganda. So he sent me a WhatsApp and was like, oh, these guys are having a call, so you can share with your colleagues. I was like, wow, this is something that falls within my space. Yeah. So I share still with on other platforms, but I also apply for it. So this was a bit more hectic. They had, I think, 3 rounds of interviews. Or round 1, 2, and 3. And eventually now the email comes through. Yeah, so it was that kind of, I feel like a rubber stamp that, that you must be doing something
the right thing. Yes. The imposter thing, does it go after this, or is it still there?
I think the imposter thing is slowly fading off, slowly fading off. Though,
because these are the affirmations.
Yes. Now these are not like, the affirmations that, okay, maybe perhaps you aren't really an imposter. Probably you're doing something right. Whatever you're doing, you're doing something right in there.
And it actually reminds you, like, why was I thinking that I was an imposter?
Yeah.
But that's
it's good. So, and I think this is going to, this is based within a research institute. So it's really going to be an almost, should I say, like an academic bit of training. They're not in the lab, but on policy. But these are guys who do this on a daily. They're always researching on how what's happening in one part of the globe may end up affecting the other end. And what I like about their work is that normally when you're watching news or when you read news articles, there's where we fail to connect events or look at that long chain of how one event affects the other. But then these guys, the policy researchers, it is their work to interpret for the general public how some of these seemingly random events end up determining how policy and how the rest of the world moves. One of the very interesting articles that really made me love this work was how one of them was predicting that the war between Ukraine and Russia may end up having an effect on agriculture, on the food market. And you're already seeing that. In Uganda, the cost of bread is so expensive that someone was recommending we switch to cassava, Yeah.
Oh my God.
The bar of soap
so
is
expensive.
Yeah, Then I was like, someone saw this, someone read this, saw all these threats as like there's a looming war, and was able to think how this would affect food. That normally isn't something very obvious to those who are watching news. So I want to be able to develop that skill of being able to inform the public and stakeholders of how things that aren't obvious to them may actually have impacts on many lives of people. Because I realize sometimes in decision making, that's something that is always missed out on. People hear something's happening maybe in Kenya and feel like we are exonerated, it won't affect us. And they forget that we are very interconnected globally. That almost one way or another we are bound to be affected. And the earlier we appreciate that, the better we prepare ourselves and our economies and our systems to kind of bear these effects. So I really look forward to that kind of experience with this fellowship, being able to develop that policy analysis.
You were born and raised in Uganda?
Yes.
Where exactly?
Masaka.
Masaka. Why did I hear Masaka?
Masaka is now a city. Masaka city. It's about 130 kilometers from the capital city.
Mm-hmm.
But it's famous because apparently it's said to be the capital of the largest ethnic group here. And sometime back it used to be a food basket, though because of climate change and other factors, it's slowly losing that position. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you were born and raised in Uganda.
Yes.
When was the first time you moved out of Uganda?
In 2012.
Where were you going?
That time I had participated in the East African essay writing competition, and I happened to be one of the winners.
Wow.
So we were awarded with a trip outside. Okay, it was supposed to be a visit to any of the East African countries. At the time we visited Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was the first time I was out of Uganda.
Okay.
I was in senior 3.
Okay.
That is like grade 9. Yeah.
I have no idea. Is it high school or I don't know?
That's like middle school. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just before high school. Yeah.
So, when is the second time you went out of? Tell me the experiences of getting out of Uganda. How many countries have you been to?
2 so far. Kenya and India. I haven't traveled a lot.
What about California? I had something to do with California.
California, I'll be going there next month.
Oh. So how?
Yeah.
Why am I saying that like some illiterate human being? So how how was your experience getting out of Uganda, being out of the things that you knew? How different was the culture? How different was was so shocking? Just tell me the experience.
I think the first time, that 2012 time, I didn't really experience a lot of the culture because you are students, so you you go out with a teacher, you're controlled, your movements are controlled, and our program was very well laid out, participating in conferences, training, go to a Mombasa, what. Wasn't really much lot of freedom. But then the second time I came to Kenya, that was last year for the Science Stories Africa event. Now, I got to interact with other science communicators. They are other allies. They were able to take me around Kenya, get to experience the nightlife. Went to that place where they sell game food. I've forgotten that place. Wow, they sell game meat there. What do they call that place? Crocodiles, ostriches. What do they call it?
I don't know.
It was a nice place. So
Let me help
I spent like 6 weeks in Kenya, so I was able really to experience Kenya. And I was organizing an event, so I was always on the move, moving to National Theatre, looking for service providers, Kenya School of Government. So I got to love Kenya. One of the things I really loved about Kenya, the fact that I was in the city and there wasn't a lot of noise from cars. Yes, that one.
I'm a nice person. Don't you
Yeah. Yeah, that was the place. I loved it.
Okay.
It was a very good experience.
So
one of the things I loved about Kenya was the way people use their horns sparingly. There isn't a lot of pee. Now, when I went to India and it's the order of the day, I was like, wow. India is very India is very busy. Now in Kenya, I don't know if I was in the better place, but I was in Nairobi itself, in the center, and I felt like yes, it is there, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot like in Kampala or in India.
I would like to know what is a lot. Like what is a lot? Like I would love to know.
A lot whereby some days I could travel to town and back without hearing anyone hoot. That was a strange experience for me.
Guys, I've never thought about this.
I used to ask the Uber drivers, how do you guys do this? They're like, no, we find it a bit disrespectful to hoot for someone. Yeah, it's rude. So I was like, wow, that's a very interesting way of looking at it. So I come back to Uganda and I was like, oh, Kenya is good,
By the way, that's something, wow, I would love that you've brought this up. I have never ever thought about it. And when I look back, I'm like, by the way, the only time I've seen someone like hoot, it's something strange. It's either someone is about to be hit or something, or someone is about to cause an accident. Then you hear a very big hoot, or someone is cussing at someone for doing something. Then they want their attention. Then that's when you'll hear someone hoot, which is not very common according to my experience. Like, I'm not really saying that. Like, if I see it, I'm like, those people are really annoyed.
Exactly, and you can imagine Nairobi is a busy place, but seeing that people can go about their business
without hooting,
without feeling the need to hoot at someone. I was like, wow.
So it's very common in Kampala and India.
Oh, in Kampala it's very common, and in India it's a lot. India is a very busy place because I think owing to their population. Yeah. It was so common that moving from one point of the city to the other, I would get back to my hostel with a headache from all the noise. I was like, how do you guys survive here? And for them, it's so normal that even
they don't even realize it's like a clock,
exactly.
A ticking clock. You don't even realize a clock is ticking.
Exactly. So to them, I think their drivers, my Indian friends were used to that. So like, it might feel like when some things were obvious, as you know, someone is going to turn, they have dropped the indicator, and you still hoot at them. They're like, but then it's so common there. I just accepted it the way it is. But the experience in Kenya was so good. I loved it.
Okay, I would love to. I really hate noise, but I really love to appreciate what you're talking about. Like, when did you realize that? Like, did you know it's? Did you used to? I don't know. Like, before you came to Kenya, for example. Okay, which one was the first experience? Was it Kenya or India?
No, the first experience really didn't give me a lot of experience because I was very young and I was controlled. Also, but the second time I was on my own, having to organize an event in Nairobi. Yeah, an adult. So I was able to appreciate some of the things. So in Uganda, hooting is a bit normal because of taxis, But then in Kenya, I spent a weekend, I barely hear anyone hooting. I'm like, how come? So I began asking these Uber drivers, I'm like, how do you guys do that? They're like, no, it's rude. It's disrespectful to do that. I was like, wow.
But there is no law somewhere. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
That's strange. Loved it. Like, how did you realize that it's not normal to hoot?
No, that's after going for a week, and I realized for some reason I've really not had this whole hooting experience. It's so quiet. You drive quietly. Could even have Zoom meetings in traffic without being afraid of this noise. Oh my God,
I do that. Oh my goodness, I just said that.
But in Uganda, having a Zoom meeting in traffic, everyone will know you're in traffic. Because people will be hooting around you.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, but in Kenya, I could easily have meetings on the go. Because I came to Kenya and I was still part of the fellowship around that same time.
So you're still busy.
I was still busy, but I had to get things moving. But I could easily tune into the calls, respond in the back of a car, and don't have to worry about the noise and the what. It was so good.
When I have to attend to two things, I usually take an Uber.
Yeah.
When I have to attend to two things, so that I can have the meeting, especially if it's not very official, if you know what I'm saying. Like, if I'm the one speaking, I'm be part of the speaking, and I don't have to, put my video on. Yeah. I usually do it on traffic, but if it's something official and I'm the one speaking, I will do that. But if it's a normal meeting when I'm not the one speaking, I don't have to contribute. I can just as well as keep quiet. But I want to be part of that meeting. Maybe I can just chat. I would. It's very common for me to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. Mm-hmm.
You have the advantage of the silent traffic. That's a very unique experience.
Thank you. You're making me appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. You should visit Kampala. You'll get to rush hour. Kampala rush hour. Then after experiencing Kampala, go to Mumbai or New Delhi. You get a whole different experience.
I'll go crazy. I really hate noise. I hike because I hate noise. Yeah. Anyway, so what else? But I've never thought that someone would say that. That's still in my head. What else?
Oh, the other thing I liked about Kenya is how people have adopted M-Pesa so much. At some point, you feel like moving around with cash is an extra baggage.
Mm.
In Uganda, we have that service here, but I think
It's
the
not really
adoption rate,
embraced. Mm.
we have embraced it for transactions,
Mm-hmm.
but not for like paying for commodities. You get what I'm saying?
No.
Like we use it for sending money to, let's say, people far away from us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm sending money back home or something,
Mm-hmm.
but not going to the shop and just, pay using M-Pesa, go to the hospital, M-Pesa. And in Kenya, that was the order of the day.
Like
I almost never had
everywhere.
to move around. Yes, it's like
From
everyone.
Mamboga, kiosk, the smallest business to
Exactly.
the biggest business.
Yes,
The
I was
person
like,
on the
now
road
these guys
selling
are moving.
boiled eggs, still having
Yeah.
M-Pesa.
True. And it was so convenient. I loved it.
But if you lose your phone,
Oh,
your money
that's
goes.
trouble.
Of course, probably no one will. You still get your money back, but
Yeah.
you'll get into trouble. Like you don't have cash with you, you can't go home.
Yeah.
But
But
people are so used to.
I like the idea of embracing digital, especially
Yes,
in the
yes.
African setting.
Yeah,
People have really embraced it full on.
but then most people don't usually have change cash. Like people beg. Actually, beggars have
Trouble.
they have money. They have the katululu, the small mobile phone. What do you call it?
Eh.
Then they're like, you don't have change. You don't have change.
M-Pesa
me. Then somebody's like, how can you afford a phone and you don't have money to eat?
Wow.
Yeah, but it's not really embraced. But I've seen like now, unless you're coming out of a supermarket and you had cash, but it's very rare. Like even everywhere. Like I've never realized that, but it's so common. Because for me, I rarely have money unless the common person that I'm interacting with always wants me to withdraw instead of sending to their M-Pesa directly, or it's not Lipa na M-Pesa because it's different. So you understand that they're sending money and the Lipa na M-Pesa. So if it's Lipa na M-Pesa, at least I'm not being cut to send that money, but with withdrawing, that's cut money every single time.
Yeah.
So there are people, yes, it has been embraced, but not in, especially in places where it's not competitive. Like if you live in an area where things are not competitive, like shops are not competitive between one shop to the other, you'll find someone who will be like, give me the
Cash.
money. They'll be like, oh, and they want you to withdraw so that they have, because they have the M-Pesa shop, they want those transactions, because with the transaction, apart from them getting the money that you're paying them with, they also get the money from their
commission.
Their commission. So it's a very dirty sometimes business, but if it's in a busy place and you have two shops you have to choose from, no one will do such a crazy business and tell you, oh, Ati, withdraw, I don't want, there's no Lipa na M-Pesa, or they cannot do that. That's a very funny game to play, but it's a problem in close-knit places where it's like it's not very loud and there are not so many businesses, but it's a very common thing around everywhere. Because if you don't have that Lipa na M-Pesa, then you're inconveniencing. There's someone will tell you, oh, me, I don't have cash, then they will walk away.
Yeah.
So why lose someone because you're selling ice cream, something for 10 shillings, and you don't want someone to pay you through M-Pesa? They'll be like, it's okay, I don't have cash. Then they go. You lose a customer like that. So people prefer working with M-Pesa. Oh, that's a good notice.
It was good. And the last thing I think I appreciated was the architecture around Nairobi. I was like, wow, now these architects are on some other level. It's like people really give their designs a lot of time. Yes, those buildings. It's like each building is unique from the next. In Kampala, we still have those tall buildings, but I don't feel like their designs are as threatening as those I saw in Nairobi.
Like they're not as diverse, probably.
Yes, but Nairobi is like, these architects really give it their all. It's like,
even if it's an apartment building,
it's like they're competing for the most unique design.
Yeah.
You can really just drive through traffic just looking at buildings and not get bored.
Yeah.
Because like each building design is different from the next.
Which part of Nairobi did you like?
I'm not sure if I know the parts, but what would that be called now? are called Westlands?
Okay, which building did you like?
Are they called
Westlands.
Westlands? I
Yeah.
think it's Westlands.
Yeah.
Yes. The one that impressed me most was that thing that looks like a bullet. I think it's for BMW. Is it BMW?
Yeah. At Westlands,
Yes.
just near the roundabout. I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but I also like that building.
I was like, wow, no, this architect sat there and was like, why not design a bullet building?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I like that.
So, okay, that's all in terms of culture. Okay, what about India? You haven't talked about India apart from the noise.
Oh, in India, the people, the Indian people are very, very, very friendly. They're so nice. The other thing I loved about them is, the cost of living is cheaper than in Uganda, interestingly. I felt a bit richer when I was in India.
I want to live in India for some reason.
Yeah. But there are things that the food culture, you know. I think the only thing that was familiar to me was the rice. Everything else I was on an adventure. Yeah.
Did you cry?
No. For me, I love food, so I'm always curious to know how does this taste like.
Food?
I don't like spicy food. I love
the other
food
kind.
adventure, I would say. You know? So I always want to know, before I dismiss something, I want to know what it tastes like first.
Yes.
So my friends always took me around to, you know, almost every place they knew I could get unique food. I was like, I need to get the rich experience of India. And wow, they are good. I liked their food. Okay, it was very spicy, but I liked the ideas behind the food. As in,
like
I had fellow Ugandan students there, and we kept comparing their cuisines to our food here, and I was like, wow, these guys really take it to another level. I got to taste seafood probably. There. Yeah, probably because you're accustomed to our food. The other guys really...
And basic recipe.
Yeah.
And not like diversifying the recipe, really.
Like for them, the problem I missed out, I didn't get the names of the foods, but I really tried to ensure I test anything that looks new to my eyes. Yeah.
Did you have any problem with your stomach?
Oh, no. I usually don't have those problems, so that's good. Though my friends, some of my friends, because of the spice level, they had
problems in the toilet.
Problems with their tummies. To an extent that we had to complain. So the hostel for international students, they had to turn down on the spice level. Because people are having serious trouble here. Just imagine you have your ulcerations, you're used to dodging pepper and all that. And someone brings full blast spice level. You're like, man, this is too much for me. And the good thing with them, I think they know their spice level is high, so they always have cold water ready for you.
Knowledge,
So they have jugs of cold water on each dining table. Wow. So in case you can't take it anymore, you first cool down.
I used to love spicy food, but not like Indian level spicy. I used to love spicy food. Then I got to a point where when I go to the loo, it's a very bad experience. It's like getting spicy on the stomach and getting spicy on the other side. It's a very bad experience. Trust me, you do not want to laugh. Do you know?
No,
I used to.
I experienced that. So I'm not sure. I always drink lots of water.
Let me now laugh. Now I can.
I got to understand why this university they usually have a water point at almost every floor, be it in a hostel or an office building.
Even with them, probably, right?
I assume so. And I think the other thing probably why they have that, their place was a bit hot, very hot. Okay. As in Africa, we have the heat, but their heat was on another level. Even me, an African, I was like, this is too much for me. I was like, it's like I'm in an oven.
Wow.
For next time, the lecturers were like, please don't move in the sun. The sun here is very hot. I think it was towards their summer, so it was extra hot. It's like I was being boiled. It was hot. So I had to move around with water everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere. But I think it was a good experience, you know. It's good to always feel something, to challenge what you know. So I liked how they have a tendency of putting salt in every sweet juice. I'm like, why would you do that? They serve you juice and they put salt. They serve you soda, they put salt.
It's like the soda.
Hey! So if you want the soda without the salt, make sure you buy the soda yourself. But if you go to like a party or a wedding and they are serving soda in glasses,
It will always
they
have
should
salt.
always have salt.
Wow, that's
And they're
a new thing I'm learning.
But I like them.
this is
They're
good,
very
right?
friendly people, really. Yeah. No. Imagine
Oh.
putting salt in
But why would they do that?
juice.
Probably they like it. Probably it's a good taste. I
For
think
them,
it's
they
a
like
taste
it,
if you
obviously.
embrace. Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's
them,
a taste if you embrace it would be
that's how they
nice,
take
probably.
it. Yeah. But it was it was funny.
I don't know. I had Indian guests, but I've never talked about food. I don't know why.
But they love spices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never thought about. Anyway, okay. Yeah, this is. You don't. As an India, probably you don't see some things.
Yeah.
But if someone coming from outside, you notice things. You're like, this is different.
Yes, it was too serious at that point that they had to separate food for Indians
And
from that of international students. Because we were all complaining about the same issue. So they were like, we have to really make adjustments. So our food was still spicy, but it wasn't. Having tested the previous version, we're like, this is fine. This is good. And they have a lot of sweets. I love their sweets. So it was good. Yeah. But what I like really, they are friendly people. They're really friendly. Yeah.
Are you insisting on that? They must be really friendly.
Yeah, and I think I'm told in some areas they could be hostile, but I think the area where I was, I think the university has lots of international students, so the community around is used to that diversity in culture.
Okay.
So they always want to know about your country, how they can make life easier for you, all these kind of things. They're always trying to ensure you're having a good experience. So it was nice. And lucky for me, I found a roommate. He was an international student, but was coming from Nepal, so he knew Hindi. So it's like I had a free interpreter. So that made life a whole lot easier. So whenever I want to bargain for things, go to new places, I wouldn't be worried.
Okay.
He knew their language fluently.
That's a nice tip. Have an interpreter.
Or just have an Indian friend. He'll be good. So whenever you're going shopping or, he goes with you and it makes life a bit easier. Yeah. But India is also a good experience. Yeah.
Is there anything else pertaining traveling that you've learned?
Well, I realize I think the level of strictness at some of these places varies. So one of the things I think I always do to print everything I think they may need, even if it's not necessary. But if I get a hint that probably because someone wants to be a bit cumbersome, they'll ask for it, I print. So whether it's an admission letter or an offer letter of a job or a contract, I just have the things with me. Because sometimes you find someone and they really want to make life hard. And they're like, but I have the visa. Why are you still bothering me with all this? And so just to be safe.
Just have everything with you so that you have an easy
just
time.
have everything with me, yeah. So that chances are that even if you really ask for the weirdest kind of document, I have it with me. Yeah.
That's a good tip. Some people don't talk about that.
Yeah, but it was good. The Indian experience, I think, was very good. Oh, India. The other thing I liked about India, their flights offer a lot of food. Those in-flight snacks. Those guys give you like a whole meal with the starter, main. It's like by the time you reach the destination, you're satisfied. Wow. You've had a lot of food on the plane. I love that. Usually they just give you a few snacks and that just disorganize your enzymes and you...
Disorganize your enzymes.
They just alert your mechanism.
The other day we were talking about racism and we were laughing about melanin and the pathways. Man.
Yeah, but then India, I love them. I was always looking forward to those Air India flights because I know I was going to have a rich. And I love food, so I always love those unique food experiences. So
Okay.
these guys ensure that by the time you leave their flight, you've really had a very good experience of their meals.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Why did you do
We've been
that?
on this. We've been on. I just checked the time here, and I realized we've been on this call for like what, 2 hours? Over 2 hours.